Welcome to the USFL Today. Still the off-season edition. We're getting closer to being the training camp edition, but not just yet. I'm your host, Angelo Fioris. You can follow me at USFL Today on Twitter. Same handle on YouTube to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the great shows we have rolling out as the season gets closer. Set those notifications and do not miss a single episode. Also follow our New Jersey Generals account on Twitter at NJ_Generals because there's always some good news coming out of that account too. And we'll be growing other accounts for the other teams as the year goes on. So we're looking forward to bringing all that. I'm also looking forward now to bringing our latest guest on USFL Today. He is the kicker for the Michigan Panthers. His name is Cole Murphy, and he had a great season last year, even though he joined the team a little bit late. Cole, welcome to USFL Today. How are you?
Good, man. Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm happy that you're here. You've been a pretty busy guy getting ready for the season. You were just in Alabama training with a bunch of people. Tell me what that was like and how many of you were there and what did you guys kind of do?
Yeah, it was good. So it was me and my punter and snapper, Kyle and Shane. We were down there with Mike McCabe for about 4 or 5 days. Got there on Thursday. We were there until Tuesday. And yeah, we spent 4 or 5 days just training with him and working with Shane Graham and Mike McCabe and all these great guys, and got to see some of the other USFL guys like Nick Vogel, Matt White. Yeah, I mean, overall, it was really just a good weekend.
So it was a good sized group of you guys all working out with Mike and was it Shane Graham you said, right? The other former kicker.
Right. Yeah. So there's a group of guys that are down there that train year round. They're all living in Birmingham. So it seemed like it was the easiest way for us to kind of get together and train. Because Shane, my snapper's from Philly, I'm from LA, and Birmingham, we'd already been there. We knew that. Ooh, that was weird. Sorry.
That's okay. You're good.
Got one of those like weird flash flood warnings. Yeah. So, it was just a good environment for us to be there, and you know we had already kind of been there a few times, and Kyle has an extra room, so we got to stay there for free. You know, it makes it a little bit easier. So
excellent.
It's not bad.
I know Coach McCabe is sort of like the guru for a lot of you guys from a special teams standpoint. He's instructed and offered a lot of help to several of the special teamers I've talked to so far from the USFL. But give me some insight, like what gets offered? What do you guys get fine tuning wise or improvement wise? It's got to be very nuanced because you're all experienced kickers. So give me an idea of what type of, what's your takeaway that helped you get better from that camp? How about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it ends up being just another set of eyes that can kind of watch us from a different point of view. There are different coaches that have different techniques that they like to look for, and there's different things that every guy likes to really nitpick. I think Mike does a really good job overall. He works with kickers and punters and snappers, so he knows a little bit of everything. But yeah, I mean, just overall, it's good for us to kind of get those reps together as a unit and kind of figure out how to, get back together after 8 months. I hadn't seen these guys for literally the entire offseason. So for us to get back and just to get in just with full live reps and get everything tightened up a little bit before we get to camp is really, really important. But yeah, Mike, I mean, he more than anything, because, like you said, we're pros. We know how to fix our technique. If we miss something up, we know exactly how to fix it. So just having that guy that can provide the venue, give us a second set of eyes, and film, and, just critique a little bit here or there really, really helps a ton.
I understand. Okay. And so let's go backwards a little bit. Let's talk about your college career first. You went to the University of Syracuse. You had a tremendous college career. You led the team in scoring freshman year, sophomore year, senior year, and you booted 5 kicks, 50 yards and above. So that's pretty impressive for a college career. One thing that I noticed, Cole, which I thought was kind of funny or coincidental, let's just say, your 5 kicks of 50 yards and above at Syracuse ranked second all time on the career list there, trailing only Dave Jacobs, who had 7. Dave Jacobs was an original USFLer, played for the Generals in 1983. So that's some pretty cool symmetry now as we look at you making your way up to the near the top of the Syracuse kicking records that it's two USFLers, 1 and 2 for most 50+ yard kicks there.
You know, it's funny that you say that. I actually didn't know that Dave played in the USFL. He actually still lives in Syracuse, so I saw him all the time when I was in college. He owns a store right on like the main street of campus, and so you get to go in there and see him all the time. And he came out and helped me a little bit here or there every once in a while. Really a good dude, really a good dude. But that's actually, it's kind of funny that you said that. I had no idea.
Yeah, how cool is that, right? Now when you see him, you can bring that up. You guys have that in common too. Let me ask you, since you brought up Dave Jacobs, what kind of store does he have in Syracuse?
So he sells everything Syracuse. I mean, it's got T-shirts, it's got all kinds of sports memorabilia. There's all kinds of stuff in there. It's really, really a cool shop.
That is pretty cool. I believe. All right, so I'm dating myself now, but if I'm not mistaken, I saw Dave Jacobs play in college when Syracuse didn't quite have the dome yet, and it was still under construction. They played a home game or two at Giant Stadium in New Jersey, and I was a kid, like maybe 10 years old or something, and Dave Jacobs was the kicker for Syracuse. Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, they just renovated the dome. The top of it has like a 40-year lifespan, I guess, and they either had to pay extra to kind of go back and redo the old top, or they could spend the same amount of money and put in that kind of like clear glass top that Minnesota has now.
Right.
So they did kind of a hybrid, but it's a really, really cool dome. But yeah, that's
cool.
super cool.
Yeah, the timeline makes sense because the dome opened in like 82, I think, or maybe 81. So we're at 40 years. That's interesting too. They replaced the dome. So let's talk about your pro career now. You did have a short time with the Arizona Cardinals. Didn't last very long, and you went quite a span without any on-field action. You got a call with the fleet of the AAF, but it was only field goals because they didn't have PATs, right? They didn't have kickoffs, if I'm not mistaken. So you were left to just concentrate on field goals. Did you even get any attempts at the AAF when you were there?
No, I didn't. So I was there for training camp. It worked out kind of strange. I was there the entire week, entire training camp. I made the final roster, and then when I got back to San Diego, there was some stuff we were trying to work out during training camp that we couldn't really figure out scheme wise on the field and figuring everything out. And so, basically they said, with 2 days before our first game, they said, look, it's not working out. We're going to go pick up somebody else. And they picked up Donnie Hageman, who last night actually just hit the game winner for the XFL.
That's right. Wow. What an interesting and small world that the football world and especially the spring league world really is, right?
Oh yeah, it's such a small world, and I've known Donnie since I was in high school, so it's weird because there's a lot of guys that you're going to see like they replace each other all the time in different leagues, or they're bouncing back and forth. And I mean, a lot of these guys that are in these leagues I've known for probably 6-7 years now, like Donnie or like Matt Sosa, or just a lot of guys that are out there.
Just the nature of the beast, and it's hard to like have animosity towards guys if they replace you or if you get cycled out by a team, I guess, because you're all sort of trying to achieve the same goal, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, we're all friends. I mean, we're all
right.
Like personality-wise, we're pretty similar, and and like you said, we're all trying to do the exact same thing, and it's just business. Like we understand, like if there's got to be some reason why we're not coming back, we're keeping our job, or somebody else is coming in. There's something, whether it's we are overvaluing ourselves, or we're underperforming, or somebody's a cheaper product and can give you the same result. There's so many things that can affect that, and we just kind of have to accept that as athletes. That's just part of the game now,
and sort of just roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from the AAF experience, there's a little bit of a lull. COVID, of course, there's not much action happening for anybody to play. USFL rolls around. You're not on any of the rosters. The Panthers start out their season with a well-documented series of kicking difficulties, maybe some bad decision-making as to how to handle the kicking situation and who should have been responsible for those duties. But regardless of all that, week 5 of last year, you get the call to join the Panthers, and immediately while the team had a lot of other problems, including the kicking game, you came in and you became an immediate stabilizing presence, hit a couple of big kicks early, the 56-yarder in only your second game, and the rest of the season was a tremendous success for you. Talk about what it felt like to have a long layoff from any game action, on-field action, and then to be as successful as you were and to close the season as one of the top kickers from an accuracy standpoint as well as a distance standpoint.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. I mean, once I finished with the AAF, I got signed with the Cardinals about 2-3 months later. I was with them for about 2 or 3 months, and then right as training camp got started, there was just a couple of things here or there. They needed another punter to come in. They actually replaced me with Ryan Winslow, who was my punter in the AAF.
Wow. There we go again.
I know, right? So, yeah, it's just like it's such a small community.
Right.
But yeah, so once I got cut from there, yeah, I was trying to kind of figure out, workouts, trying to see if I can find just a place anywhere. And actually, I really thought once I got cut from Arizona, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a couple more phone calls. This is gonna be great. Because usually that's kind of the golden ticket. When you get your first NFL contract, then you're in the workout circuit and you're with teams and you get to, start your career really. That didn't really happen that first year, and then COVID happened. And do you know who Gary Zahner is? He runs a lot of like free agent combines for specialists, and so Gary, I went and I did his combine the following year in March, and the previous one was where I got my Arizona Cardinals gig. Didn't do as well as I'd hoped. I did okay. I didn't do poorly, but usually you have to be kind of the top guy to get what you need.
Right.
So I wasn't the top guy. So 2020 hit. All of a sudden, right after that, the world shuts down for 8 months at least in terms of football, and they actually expanded some of the practice squad rosters in the NFL. And I thought, okay, well, they're going to leave more opportunities for specialists to come in, because if your guy tests positive, all of a sudden you need a guy within 48 hours, and you can't clear waivers. Yeah. So if you don't have a guy on the roster, you're SOL. There's nothing you can do. So yeah, so that was kind of my first hope. I was hoping, okay, maybe I'll get a couple workouts, maybe somebody will see that I played and signed a contract, and will take a risk. The hardest part with all this stuff in the NFL and in all these leagues is these guys, it's a business. They're here to make sure that they stay employed. And if there's a guy that you really believe in and you want to take a risk on, you potentially have to put your job on the line to risk that. And so it becomes an easier option to say, hey, well, there's a veteran who's on the street rather than a guy that hasn't played in a game yet. And so that's kind of been the challenge for a lot of guys that haven't played in NFL games yet. You go up and they say, okay, well, he's worth $1 million a year more, but if he doesn't pan out, at least I can say, hey, he had a track record. I can at least bet on that a little bit. So all 2020 goes by, and then 2021 rolls in, and I actually got a little bit of time with the spring league. I was in Indianapolis for about 2 months or so, maybe a little more. And it's so strange. Kicking is one of those things where it's so mental and physical that you have to have both really to be in the right spot.
Right.
So mentally, I was not in the right place. I had had a couple different issues, and then with COVID and all that stuff, I was really dealing with a bunch of different things. And so yeah, I went in there and I really didn't perform. I actually ended up getting cut and replaced by Matt Kirisosa, who was right before me in the USFL. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's so funny how often that happens where you see different guys get signed. So I ended up getting cut, and I go back home, and I called one of my old agents and I said, hey, what am I missing here? I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. And he was the first agent I had out of college. And he said, you know what, you need to go see a sports psychologist. So I ended up finding the best sports psychologist in California. Her name's Carrie Hastings. She's the sports psych for the Rams. She's phenomenal. And within like 6 months, I mean, it was weird because I could see like my athletic ability was way up here. It was really high.
Right.
My mental side was not quite as high, but once I matched those two, all of a sudden my trainings kept getting better and better and better and better. And I didn't have to work quite as hard. I would go out there, I'd hit 30 balls, and I'd be like, wow, I'm really satisfied with the day. I don't need to go and hit 70. Right. So once that happened, all of a sudden my reps were getting better and better and better. And I was more confident because I was doing so much better. So the USFL Combine rolls around, in early 2022. Carney was the one who had actually put it all together. He's the guy that I train with in Carlsbad the most.
John Carney,
And
right?
yeah, John Carney.
Okay.
Actually, when I met John, he had actually played more years in the NFL than I was alive.
Oh yeah, he had a
So
long career, 20 years, I think.
yeah, he was. So I met him at 22, and I think his final year is 23.
Yeah.
So he played so long in the NFL, and I mean his level of knowledge for specialists is so incredibly high. So it was really good that he was able to kind of set that whole thing up, and it was only 2 hours away from home for me, so I could drive down there, do the whole combine, drive back home. You know, a lot of these combines you have to either drive to Phoenix or you have to fly to Texas, or you're
Right.
going all over the place. This one, you know, I see John multiple times a week, so I could just drive down there, no problem.
Very convenient.
Yeah, yeah. So went out there and I did really, really well. I had signed myself up purely as a kicker, not as a combo guy. And I didn't know this until later, but that's kind of what they were looking for. They were trying to kind of find a lot of guys that could do a little bit of everything,
Right.
because of the limited roster spots and all that stuff.
Sure.
They want to save some money, and I get it. Um, and I mean, you could see by the end of the season, they decided that wasn't the best move, and they added roster spots and they brought in punters and kickers that, you know, could make sure that they could fill both spots. Um,
It was an
so yeah,
evolution for sure. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, there's only one team I think that still has one combo guy, and I think it's Philly. And we'll see. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna get another guy. I mean, Luis did pretty well at both, so he's a good dude. So he
Luis,
knows when.
Luis Aguiar. Right. Right.
Yep. Yeah, and you know he's a pro. He knows how many reps are too many reps, and if he feels like he's getting a little too many reps, he'll probably say something. But yeah, so went into the combine, did really well. I actually felt like I was going to get picked up. I was like, this is really good. I showed out, and I also punted at the very end just to kind of show that I could do it. It was like, hey, you know, if you haven't signed up to do it but you want to, you can go ahead and do it. So I did, punted pretty well. Then the draft comes around, and do you remember when they were doing the whole draft? How it was all being released on social media, but it wasn't one pick at a time. It was kind of like
Here's all 10
three picks at a
kickers.
time, and
Here's all 10
yeah,
receivers. Here's all 10 tight ends that just got picked. Right.
exactly. Yeah. So I was sitting there waiting, and I was watching because I wanted to see, you know, some of my friends had gotten picked up. There were other positions, some of other specialists, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
And yeah, and of course I wanted to hear my name too. So I was, you know, I was sitting there watching and watching and watching, and I had told my buddy I was going to go train with him that day. So we roll over to the local community college, and right as I park there, that's right when all the names get released. And sure enough, I wasn't on it.
Right.
And you know, I was pretty discouraged. I was like, man, you know, I thought I did pretty well, and wasn't sure exactly what was going on. And then I realized the next round, when they kind of went into that supplementary round where they had two, you could see a lot of teams were just picking one guy that could do both. They weren't getting one of each. So yeah,
Right.
so yeah, so for the next, you know, 7-8 weeks roughly, still training, still doing my thing. And you know, you can see there's guys that are having problems with, you know, part of it was that they're being overworked, part of it was the chip ball. There was a lot of issues that were going on, and
Several factors.
yeah, and I could see too. I mean, in our group chats, because we, you know, down at Carney's or down at McCabe's, all these guys, we have these group chats, and you know, everybody's always talking about stuff. And so yes, I mean, we could see like guys that were kicking the chip balls were getting bruises all over their feet. It was really just not great.
Wow.
Or you could see, yeah, or you could see a guy would hit two of the exact same ball, and one would tail off this way and one would tail off that way, and he's like, I hit the same ball. I don't know what could have caused that, other than the chip.
Got to be
So
frustrating to train your entire career with one type of equipment, and then they give you a whole different one on the professional level to try to figure out in like 2 weeks.
well, yeah, I mean, you know, as pros though, if you're good enough, you'll be able to figure it out pretty quick. I mean, I don't think it should take more than a week and a half, 2 weeks, as long as you're hitting a decent amount of balls to figure it out. Now, granted, with the chip, if it's not balanced, it's going to be flying all over the place just because it's not centered.
Yeah.
So that'll lead to some issues, and luckily they ended up fixing that right as I came. So I didn't really have a lot of issues. But yeah, so you know, for about 7-8 weeks, I'm just sitting there training. I'm training kids while I'm here in LA. So I'm, you know, doing my lessons, and I'm, you know, just doing my normal thing. And I get a call from Steve Kaiser, our GM, and he tells me, you know, hey, we're possibly looking at adding somebody. You know, I need your film as soon as possible. And I'm actually on the field with a kid training. And I'm like, oh crap. Okay. So I had to, I basically had to make my own film within the span of like 30 minutes and send it to him.
Quick
And
editing
didn't have, I
skills.
wasn't prepared. Yeah. And I wasn't prepared at all. And I canceled the lesson. I'm like, sorry, dude, I got to do this. So, so yeah, so I sent it to him, and then about a week later, actually about a week and a half later, I get a phone call on like a Wednesday night, and it's Wednesday at like 9 o'clock at night in LA, so it's pretty late in Birmingham, and it's Steve, and then right afterwards, Jeff Fisher ends up calling me, and then Nick Novak, who was another guy that I work with a lot of the time, calls me, and they're all calling me at the same time, going, "Okay, this is what's going to happen. They're going to pick you up. You need to get down there." So I'm trying to figure all my stuff out, and they, with this league, they said you have to pay your own way. So I'm like, okay, I got to fly to Birmingham, and it's Wednesday, so the game's Friday. I've got 2 days to get there, but I also have to, get my physicals done. I have to do all my, all the pre
Get
check
all
stuff,
your
basically.
affairs in order, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they said, hey, we want you here tomorrow so that you can, one, go to practice with us and use the balls, and two, so we can actually get you in with the doctors and stuff. So I ended up booking a flight for 5 a.m. the next morning, and it was this is the part you won't believe. It is unbelievable. This is right when the price of gas was going up. Everything was going up really, really fast.
Yeah.
A one-way flight from here to Birmingham was $2,300. And I had to
Wow.
take it. I had to take it because,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, and if I didn't, somebody else would.
That was your
That's
first week's
that's
pay.
yeah, no kidding, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
The
so I
sacrifices
ended up,
to chase the dream, right?
yeah. I mean, that's what you got to do. I mean, if you're
Right.
not willing to sacrifice all this time and money and effort, it's what's it for, So,
Right.
yeah, so I booked the plane ticket. I got on the flight, and I got to Birmingham the next day. And so, I go there, practice one day, and it's basically just a walkthrough day. We're going through, and they're just kind of lining everybody up. And they said, just go ahead and hit some balls over here. I want you to get used to the ball. We'll see how it goes. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
hitting good balls. It wasn't too big of a deal. It was just going through, figuring out how to hit them, and I was playing them a little bit right. And I'm like, okay, that means I just got to, just swing through them and really finish. And then it wasn't a problem. So, but anyway, we go to the next day. I get my doctor's appointments done. I do the blood work. They do the physical. All the normal stuff. And we go into the pregame. And in the pregame, they come over and they tell me, "Hey, so we had signed you with, basically the condition was because of COVID, all these guys were getting positive tests. They couldn't play, but when they get healthy, they're automatically put back on the roster."
All right.
So I'm in the pregame. I'm literally in pads and my pants and my cleats and everything. And they said, these guys just came back negative, so we have to put you on the inactive list this week. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just, just part of what you got to do.
The way the numbers
So
played
that,
out, right?
yeah, exactly. So, 3 or 4 guys that were inactive that hadn't practiced for a week, now all of a sudden they're back on the roster, but they hadn't practiced. So they don't know what kind of plays they're running. They don't know what adjustments they'd made for that week. And so they're kind of like, well, we have these like 4 guys that we can't really use too much because they just haven't been practicing.
Right. Just not ready.
Yeah. And, it just, I felt so bad for Mac. I mean, this was the game where he missed the 25 or 28-yard game winner, and Mac really isn't. He's not a kicker. He's a punter, and truthfully, he's a damn good punter.
Yeah. He really
But
is.
he's just, yeah. But just to have it all on one guy's shoulders and with a new ball and trying to figure everything out, it wasn't a good combination. And it's not really anybody's fault. It's just you don't know until you know it, right?
Well,
Eh,
I'll say that I felt like he was put in kind of a no-win situation, though, because it's not his
Yeah,
specialty, and you're asking a guy to do something that's not his regular thing, and then when it's a game situation on the line, whew, and then he was gone after that.
right. And well, and to play devil's advocate though, when he goes to the combine, he tells everybody, "Hey, I'm a punter kicker, not just a punter." So
Right.
you do end up getting what you paid for sometimes, but I can't blame him. He wants the job. He's got to say it.
Sure.
So, and at the end of the day, too, that's what they were looking for, and that was who they thought was the best option. So
I,
again, I can't blame anybody for that. It just is what it is.
I think we've all
Um,
sort of, at some point or other, extended our experiences, say, on a resume situation to maybe be out of our comfort zone to get a gig. So I can totally understand what you're talking about there.
yeah, 100%. And I don't blame Mac one bit. And I personally, because I've known Mac since I was in, I think I was a junior in high school when I met him. Um, it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
And I've been literally, he and I were in the exact opposite scenario the year before in the spring league. He took my job,
Right.
and it was the same thing. I was a kicker, and I had been told, "Hey, you have to kick and punt." And my punting was, not great, and my kicking at the same time was also not great because my headspace wasn't all that refined. Um, but yeah, and then things ended up getting better once I got there because they had said, "Hey, we're going to expand the roster a little bit. We're going to allow you guys to bring in a punter. We're going to allow you to have somebody who can actually hold." And that was another part of this too, was because you only have one guy that's supposed to do everything. Usually, the punter's the holder, so you're having
Uh,
to teach somebody else who hasn't held before how to hold. And luckily, when I came in, we had just got Josh Love over from Pittsburgh, and Mac had actually taught him how to hold in college because they were teammates in college.
uh,
So I had a decent holder the second week I got there, and then we expanded the roster. Kyle Kramer came in, and he's stellar too. He's a great holder, and I mean he knows what he's doing. He's a pro, and it ended up working out really really well.
it's a completely revamped kicker's room, so to speak, in Michigan. And before we talk about that part, let's talk about the fact that, okay, so week 5, you came in. Week 6, you nailed the 56 yarder. In week 7, that was the big one against New Orleans, where you booted a 60 yarder, which probably would have been good from like 64, it looked like to me. I mean, you got all of it. What'd that feel like? I mean, you nailed it. Was that the first 60 yarder you've nailed in a game situation?
In a game, yeah. So going out of college, my long was 53. I hit it my senior year at Miami, and then yeah, I mean 2 weeks back to back, going and hitting my new career long and hitting 2 records at the time for the USFL was pretty big.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
you
I mean
got
it's
the dude from Pittsburgh, Ramos, comes up and ups you by 1 yard.
yeah, I mean it's a funny story. Ramiz actually came up to me literally 2 days later after I hit my kick, and he goes, "I'm going to break it this week."
Get out of here.
And he told me, I swear on my life, we were eating breakfast, and he goes, "Hey man, that was really cool. Hey, by the way, I'm breaking this week." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I hope you do. Like, we'll see." And sure enough, by a yard. And so he's one of the guys that trains with us in Carlsbad, and so we have a group chat. And the second Ramiz hit it, I saw it and I looked into the group messages, and I'm like, "Well, it's fun while it lasted."
So you had the record for what, about 6 days?
Well, no, because the 56 was the record before that. So I guess realistically, I had it for about 2 weeks, but I mean,
Right.
2 weeks and 6 days are not too big
So
of a
so
difference.
you actually kind of broke the record twice, 53 and then the 60, and then Ramiz comes over and takes it from you by a yard. Amazing. But
Yeah,
quite
and
a
he's
kick.
he's stellar too. He's a really good kicker. I mean, there's a reason why he was at the Packers this year. He's
Yeah,
really really good.
yeah, and they recognize that, and his tape said it all. And nailing a 61 yarder does not hurt your prospects, right? Um, yeah, and you had a spectacular season. You only missed one kick all year.
Mhm.
Incredible accuracy. You're talking about 90, something like 91%. You led the league at kickers in accuracy, and only kicked half the year. So what's it feel like now being the guy? You're heading to camp. There's week 1, you're going to be the dude. 10 games ahead of you. How's this year going to go? How do you visualize the season?
Well, I mean, you're always going to want to improve. I mean, I want to be a more than 91%. I want to be 92 to 95 if I can be. I want to make every kick. I mean, that's our end goal, is to make every single kick. So yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I think a lot of it, especially before I got kind of my sports psychology stuff done and how I figured everything before that, was I was like, okay, I need to make every kick or else. And it was kind of like a threat. Now it's like I get to go out there and I get to enjoy, you know, reaping the reward of all my work. I get to actually have fun and enjoy it and just have a good time. And that's really what it's all about too. I mean, if you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't be doing it, you know?
Uh,
So yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I think this year is going to be really fun. I've got, like you said, I've got a great unit. I've got Kyle and Shane. I've got great teammates. I've got a good staff coming in. I think it's going to be good. And not to mention also we're indoors for half the season, which is, that's how I played in college. I indoors. I mean, if you go and you look at my numbers statistically, and this is before I was even really good up top,
Right.
I was nails. I'd never missed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. The comforts of kicking in the dome for half the season now at Ford Field is going to be pretty nice, as well as that mid-season stretch where you guys don't have to travel for like 3 weeks or something like that. 3 straight home games, 4 straight home games. I forget what the number is, but you got a good run there in the middle. Um, so that's going to be
Yeah.
fun. And then kicking in front of fans, playing in front of fans that are on your side is got to be pretty cool. Pretty cool thing to look forward to as well.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, really the only game that we played that had a lot of fans was Birmingham last year. I mean, they're the home team for the whole entire season,
Right. And
even
they were
when they're,
never rooting for
when they're
you
away.
guys. Yeah, they were never
Yeah.
rooting for you guys. So
Yeah. But we have a huge social media following. I think our ticket sales are going to look pretty good. I mean, I think from what I heard, they're expecting at least 15,000 a game, which is going to be great. I think that's going to be really good numbers. And, I hope it's more. I hope we
of
pack
course.
it all the way up. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be good to be in the dome, be able to, and it'd be different if it was in the winter, if it was freezing cold. I mean,
Yeah.
March when we get there, it's going to be cold, but we're going to be playing from April to June or July. So it's more than anything, it's just going to be actually keeping it cool, not keeping it warmer.
Right.
um, but yeah,
And
so I mean, it should be
also
fun.
keeping the elements out of the way and making as best a situation for the kicking and everybody's footing and all of that kind of stuff. So that's cool.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
let me ask you. Let's backtrack again. You mentioned that you train kids. What do you train them at kicking, or do you train them at fitness? What's that? What's a day in the life of training with Cole?
Yeah. So I'm a kicking coach. So I go in and I work with a lot of kids here in LA, and I'm actually in the prime location. I mean, in California, there's no snow. There's
Right.
hardly ever rain. It's raining outside right now, and this is like everyone's freaking out. They're losing their mind. Um,
So
and
spoiled, you guys.
I know, yeah. It's actually quite honestly, it's a little boring because it gets the same thing over and over, and it's like,
I'll
oh no, it's
take it any
85
day.
today.
Oh, you want some
Yeah,
excitement? It's 35 degrees in Jersey, so come on over.
I, you know, I, I'll take you up on that, but
Oh, you're
maybe in
welcome.
about 10 years. um, but yeah, it's really good. I've been training kids since I came back from college, and actually, I've got a pretty good network set up right now. I've got about 50 kids that I train.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and it's built pretty well. I think I've got a lot of kids here that have really done super well. In the last 5 years, I've had kids go to a ton of D1 schools. And the biggest thing for me was I want to give these kids the opportunity that I didn't have. I went in as a walk on to Syracuse and I had to earn the scholarship. And granted, I had an easier path than a lot of kids did. I walked in and I had a guy above me that really had been untested. Our senior had decided he was going to retire early. He was medically ineligible basically because of his hip.
No.
And so I had a good clear pathway to go in and play right away. So that helped me win my job. But I want these guys to be so prepared when they go in that it doesn't matter who, if it's a returner, if it's a new guy, whoever it is, they're going to win the job. But yeah, I mean, luckily I've got some great kids that have really put in a lot of time and a lot of work. And um, do you know Sierra Canyon? It's where LeBron James sends his kids to school for basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm actually the kicking coach there for that school too. So I work with a lot of
Oh,
those kids
nice.
there, and yeah, it's a really cool environment. It's a school. It's a small school, but I mean, they put such a priority on academics and athletics that it's unrivaled anywhere in LA. It's like you want to go to Sierra Canyon.
That sounds like it helps fill in the time, keep you active in the game, keeps you thinking and talking about technique, which I guess mentally probably helps you stay prepared as well during an off season. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh yeah, 100%. And when the kids teach me stuff all the time. I mean, there have been times where I'll go and I'll kick with them. Like I'll give you a great example. I have a kid at Sierra Canyon who he's a young kid. He's going to be a junior, but he's really really good. And we're going out there and we're kicking, and we're actually at his practice. And this was maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I guess it was a year and a half ago. So I'm hitting balls, and he could kind of tell I'm not liking how I'm hitting them, but they're going directly down the middle. They're really high. And he was like, well, what's wrong with that ball? And I'm like, well, it's a little off my toe. It's a little thin. He goes, well, it's straighter, higher, and further. And I'm like, I was like, you got me there. So all of a sudden I decided, okay, I'm going to start trying to kick like that. And then my accuracy went up again too. And that was when I was still trying to fix things and build a little bit. So, I mean, it's a really good thing to do just because, like you said, it keeps me mentally sharp. I'm always constantly talking technique. I'm always constantly talking, kicking stuff all day, every day. But times like that where they actually will help me develop my own stuff. It's pretty cool.
Sounds like a lot of fun, actually, and it goes back to what you mentioned earlier when you were describing the camp or the training situation in Birmingham, which is even the kids offer an extra set of eyeballs, which
Mhm.
might give you that one last bit of insight. So that is very interesting to hear that the students at times help the teacher.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the other big part of this too, is I try to create a community a little bit, especially when I'm gone for these next 4 months. These kids aren't going to have a coach. So I'm trying to connect, some of my high school kids with some of my college kids. I'm trying to connect my underclassmen with my upperclassmen. I'm trying to get everybody kind of interconnected so that when I'm gone, they can say, hey, Dennis, can I call you? Can we go train somewhere? So Dennis Lynch, who's the starting kicker at USC, is a kid that I trained in high school,
Oh,
and
nice.
he's going to be kind of the main kid that's going to kind of help with all my lessons while I'm gone. But there's a few other kids here or there. They're at like Cal Lutheran and some other schools that'll help out with that too. But yeah, I mean, it's creating a community. That's really kind of been the biggest benefit to all this.
They get their own little network to keep each other motivated and um, focused while you're setting an example for them in the pros, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of kids who hadn't seen me kick actually in person or on TV or anything like that. And some of my older kids have. Right when I started, right when I left college, it's, oh yeah, I watched you play last year. We saw you guys beat Clemson. We saw you guys play at Miami, or whatever game it was. But a lot of my kids that are juniors and younger, they really had never seen me do anything. And even when I was in the USFL, they were like, "Wow, like you back up what you're saying."
You can do
you
this.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. And I keep telling them, like, I promise, like I'll show you what I mean. And then this last year, I went into the season and I did really well, and they were like, I came back and they thought, yeah, you backed it up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You validate everything you've been schooling them on, all in just a 5 week performance. Pretty cool.
Yeah, hopefully a little bit more this year, right? Hopefully
Hey,
more
10 or
closer to
11,
12.
right? 11 or 12. We'll see. The
Yeah.
team is definitely primed to have a better season than last year just because of the fact that, hey, they lost a couple of games simply due to the unsettled nature of the kicking situation. And with other improvements at other positions and certain guys like maybe like a Reggie Corbin returning, new coaching staff, new sort of culture. It's going to be a different year in Michigan, and I'm interested and excited to see exactly how you guys come out of the gates and what sort of tone you set for yourselves as the stretch run at Ford Field approaches.
Yeah, me too. I think we've kept a lot of the key pieces. I think we've gotten some new guys in that are really going to help. I think this college draft actually was pretty interesting. I'm curious to see when we're going to add those guys. We'll see. It depends on how the draft goes and,
It's
and
going to be a
mini
trickle.
camps and
Yeah,
all
a
that
little
stuff.
here,
But
a little there, maybe. It's not going to be like 10 guys showing up at camp or anything.
right, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and maybe eventually in years later down the road, maybe that will be the case. But it's a startup league, or it's not a startup league. It's a league that's starting up, I should
Yeah.
say. And you got to figure out ways to kind of keep it fresh, find new blood, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a great scenario. I've talked with our special teams coordinator. I haven't talked with our head coach yet, but the guys that I know that know him say that he's fantastic. And I mean, not to mention he's got a great resume. I mean, he's
Wealth of
coached all over the
experience.
place.
Yeah, wealth of
Yeah,
experience. So you guys are in a good place with Coach Nolan taking over from Coach Fisher. It's like experience replacing experience. So I'm sure he'll continue the same program and improve it from there. You start house hunting or apartment hunting yet in Michigan?
oh yeah, we already got it all nailed down.
Are you all set up?
Yeah, we were waiting for kind of the final date, like our report date, or when we're not going to be in training camp to kind of figure out the housing stuff. But once we
Yeah.
got that nailed down about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we kind of got it all squared away. We got a house. We're good to go, and it's going to be all the specialists, and then Josh Love will be with us, so
Oh,
should be fun.
cool. So the holder, the long snapper, the kicker, and the punter all having a party house in Detroit.
Yep. Oh yeah. We just
That's
gotta
awesome.
we gotta stay out of trouble though.
I think you guys will be all right. I don't expect you guys. You're not the troublemaker types, you guys. I talked to Kyle as well, and he's a pretty mellow dude as also.
Oh yeah, he's a mellow dude. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a little bit more of the rambunctious type compared to those two. But Kyle and Shane, they have fun, but they know when enough is enough.
Yeah,
So they'll
yeah.
they'll be able to wrangle me in a little bit.
Well, it's going to be a fun season, Cole, for sure. Looking forward to seeing you in action for all 10 weeks. And I do expect you to lead the league in kicking from an accuracy and the longest distance standpoint this year. Make your goal to hit one from 62, one up Ramas, and show him up. That would be awesome.
That'd be killer. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to do what I can do. If they throw me out there for a 65, I'm gonna hit a 65. If they throw me out there for a long of 58, I want to hit a 58. So I'm not too concerned with the longest, and I get what you're saying, and I appreciate it too because
Yeah.
I do want it. But at the end of the day, I don't want to just focus purely on the long ball or anything like that. I want to just be solid and consistent and be the best guy I can be, and then it'll take care of itself.
Well, I think you've shown already that you are capable of meeting and exceeding each of those. So I congratulate you and I wish you the best on a great 2023 season. Let's stay in touch during the year and definitely talk as the camp and games move along, huh?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great, man. And thank you again too for having me on here. I know. Well, at least I hope people enjoy it.
They enjoy it. They love hearing from the players. Your stories are great, and that's why we kind of focus on like what the journey was like. We'll worry about the distances and the X's and O's and all that stuff once the games are there to talk about something fresh. But I appreciate you coming on, Cole. We will see you again during the season as you start piling up the field goals and the extra points on your way to the league scoring championship. That's my prediction for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
There he is, the kicker of the Michigan Panthers, Mr. Cole Murphy. And if you are not a subscriber to our channel, make sure you head to YouTube at USFL Today. Click that button and subscribe. You'll get a notification every time one of these great shows featuring one of these great players posts and is live for you to enjoy. But for this week, that's it. I'm your host, Angelo Fioris, and this has been USFL Today. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Or actually, thanks for watching.